Welcome back to The Deep Dive, the show where we take that huge stack of sources you send our way, articles, research, specialized lists, and we pull out the absolute gold nuggets of knowledge.
That's right.
Today, we have a fantastic mission, and it's one that's been custom-tailored for you, the learner.
Mm-hmm.
We are diving into a list of the 100 most crucial advanced English words and phrases. The ones that really move you beyond just, being understood.
Right.
And start to unlock the secrets to sounding truly fluent, native-like even.
Absolutely. And this source material, it's not just some generic vocabulary list you'd find anywhere.
Yeah.
It's a really comprehensive compilation, and it's been designed specifically for people who've, they've mastered the basics, but they're still feeling that small, that frustrating gap.
That gap between being conversational and being truly professional.
Exactly, that nuanced communication.
Wow.
So we're looking at the terminology, the turns of phrase, and especially the phrasal verbs that people actually use every single day.
Okay, let's unpack that right away, because the key insight from the source and what makes this deep dive so powerful is utility. It's all about utility.
100%.
We are not focusing on those obscure, rarely used words you might find on an old university entrance exam.
No, this isn't about that.
This is about the high-frequency vocabulary that dictates the flow of real-world dialogue, of business meetings, and even just casual banter.
So our mission today is to extract the precise nuance, the context, and the practical application of these 100 items.
Right. So we're treating this less like a vocabulary lesson.
And more like a detailed insight into, native communication psychology.
Think of this whole thing as the ultimate shortcut.
It really is. If you can acquire and, more importantly, actively implement these 100 words, your fluency is going to take a huge leap forward.
A quantum leap. And we're not aiming for just passive recognition here.
No, definitely not.
Right.
We are going straight for active, practical utility. We've structured this into 10 manageable chunks, and each one focuses on a specific area of communication.
So where do we start?
We're starting with how we talk about success and structure, the foundations.
All right. Section 1. This first group establishes the language we need to describe forward movement, progress, and sensible thinking. Kicking us off at number 1, a word that describes growth in the most positive sense. Thrive.
Thrive is such a powerhouse verb. It means you're doing more than just succeeding.
Right. It's a step up.
It is. You're flourishing, you're growing vigorously, succeeding consistently over time. It just carries this context of sustained, healthy improvement.
So if you're doing well, that could just be for a week.
Exactly. If you're thriving, you're building momentum, which, funnily enough, is another word we'll see much later on this list.
So it implies stability then, not just a temporary win.
Precisely. The example from the source really captures it. After practicing every day, she began to thrive in her guitar playing. The success isn't just a moment.
It's the result of that sustained effort.
Yes. It elevates simple success to a state of, robust well-being or just excellent performance.
Moving on to a word that has become, you just can't avoid it in modern conversations, especially around business or the environment. Number 2 is sustainable.
Right. And while its basic definition is just able to be maintained at a certain rate or level, its modern relevance has just exploded.
It really has.
Today, when you hear sustainable, you primarily think about environmental responsibility, being good for the planet.
That's the first thing that comes to mind.
And then secondly, you might think of something that can be practically maintained for a long time without, running out of resources or just crashing.
It's so interesting how that green context has almost completely taken over the word's primary meaning.
It has, but the core concept is still there. It's about utility over time. The source's example of recycling as a sustainable habit is perfect because it blends both meanings.
How so?
Well, it's repeatable indefinitely. That's the long-lasting utility part. And it's environmentally sound. For a learner, recognizing both of those contexts is just crucial.
Okay, next, let's look at a bit of emotional support with a pair of words. Reassure and reassurance.
Reassure is the verb. It means to tell someone that everything's okay, to make them feel better, specifically by getting rid of their doubt or worry.
So it's an act of emotional comfort.
Exactly. The mother reassuring her child that mistakes were normal. That's a classic example. It's all about restoring confidence.
And reassurance is simply the noun form then, the thing you give or get.
Yes. You might need reassurance from your doctor about a test result, or you might offer reassurance to a nervous friend before a presentation. It's a very high-frequency pair for talking about emotional interactions.
It's a much better way to say, he told me not to worry.
A much more advanced way, yes.
Now, here's a true gold nugget for efficiency. A phrasal verb that native speakers lean on constantly. Number 4, run through.
Oh, this is one of the quickest ways to sound fluent. It just means to quickly go over something, to review information rapidly.
And the pace is key here.
The pace is everything. It's faster and much more informal than review or examine. You use it when you don't need a deep dive, funnily enough. You just need a quick check. Let's run through the important test topics one more time.
So if I send a colleague a document and I meant to say, can you quickly check this? A native speaker would often just say, can you run through this?
Absolutely. 100%. It's all about rapid preparation or a quick summary. If you spend half an hour on it, you didn't run through it, you analyzed it. The speed is baked into the word.
Okay, next up is a word that is very often mispronounced by learners, and it deals directly with conflict resolution. Number 5, reconcile.
Yes, and the source made a great point about the pronunciation. It's reconcile.
Not reconcile.
Exactly. And primarily it means to make up after a fight, to be friends again, or to restore harmony after a disagreement. It goes beyond just forgiving someone.
How so?
It implies an active effort to move past the conflict and find a functional working relationship again.
And it can also be used in accounting, can it? Reconciling accounts.
That's a great expansion of the meaning, yes.
Right.
In finance, to reconcile figures is to make two different sets of numbers consistent with each other, to bring them back into agreement.
So whether it's people or numbers, the core idea is the same.
Exactly. Bringing different disagreeing things back into harmony.
Okay, shifting gears now to decision making. Number 6 is a brilliant adjective for describing sensible thinking. Pragmatic.
Pragmatic. It's basically the combination of practical and sensible. A pragmatic person is very realistic and focused on what will actually work.
So if you approach a huge task pragmatically,
You avoid worrying about theoretical perfection or impossible goals. You just prioritize what can be done today efficiently.
so it's the absolute opposite of being idealistic or, a dreamer.
Exactly. It's grounded realism. If a plan is too difficult or way too expensive, a pragmatic person will immediately pivot to a simpler, more achievable path. It's a key word in professional settings.
And another essential phrasal verb, this one dealing with subtle social dynamics, go along with.
This one is all about agreement, but often it's reluctant agreement. It means agreeing with someone or doing what they suggest, even if you don't really want to.
So the nuance is that you're conforming, maybe under a bit of social pressure.
Precisely. The examples from the source are perfect. Reluctantly accepting a friend's choice for dinner burgers instead of pizza, that's a common use.
But there's a darker side too, right?
There can be. The source also mentioned agreeing to a lie when someone tells you, just go along with it. It really captures that idea of social compliance, whether it's harmless or not.
Okay, let's spend some real time on number 8, resonate. I want to break down the pronunciation and, crucially, how the metaphor works.
Absolutely. First, pronunciation. It has to have that Z sound.
Yeah.
Resonate, not resonate.
Got it.
And to resonate means something stays with you or makes you feel a certain way because it connects deeply with your own experiences. Now, for the cool part, the insight.
The origin.
Yes. The word's origin comes from sound vibrations. Imagine a powerful sound wave hitting the walls of a huge building, like a church. It makes the whole structure vibrate.
That's the literal resonance.
Right. So when we use it metaphorically, we mean that a piece of music or a poem or an idea creates those vibrations, those deep emotional responses inside you.
So it connects with your internal structure, your history.
Exactly. If a speech resonates with the audience, it means the message has hit home and caused a deep felt response, not just, intellectual agreement.
That distinction, intellectual agreement versus a deep emotional connection, that's the gold nugget right there.
It is. You might say the company's mission statement was logical, but it didn't resonate with the employees.
Yeah.
It just missed that emotional spark.
Okay, number 9, a critical word for when things are not clear. Ambiguous.
Ambiguous just means not clear, and often it means having two or more possible meanings, which of course leads to confusion.
It's the opposite of being specific.
Completely. If instructions are ambiguous, you can't figure out what to do because they're open to different interpretations. It's a huge issue in legal or professional writing, where clarity is everything.
And finally, for this first section, a word we hear all the time. Biased.
To be biased means showing favoritism, letting your personal interests or your beliefs unfairly affect your decisions or your judgment.
So if a news article is biased,
It only tells one side of the story because the author or the news channel already favors that side.
it feels like it's almost impossible to be completely unbiased about everything, though.
And that's a key point baked into the word. The Source host demonstrated this so well with that funny phrase, "British English is the best, but I am biased."
Right, they're admitting their own partiality.
Exactly. And true fluency includes being able to identify and even acknowledge your own bias. It's a very self-aware thing to do.
Okay, so if Section 1 gave us the words for sensible planning and clarity, Section 2 is where we get the muscle.
The verbs for execution, yes. And how we deal with conflict and describe intense moments.
Let's start with the verb for structured execution. Number 11, carry out.
Carry out is so useful because it moves so easily between the literal and the figurative.
Okay, so you can literally carry a child out of a room.
You can. But its high utility meaning is figurative. Doing or completing a task, executing a plan.
And what's the difference between just doing a task and carrying out a task?
It's often the sense of formality and structure. It just sounds more deliberate, more professional.
So you should do the dishes.
But you carry out the plan that was discussed in the quarterly review. It signifies implementation, a structured execution of something.
And a phrasal verb that is a bit like run through, but it has a very distinct meaning. Number 12, brush up on.
The distinction here is all about the history of the knowledge. Run through is a quick review of fresh knowledge. Brush up on means to review and refresh knowledge that has gotten rusty.
So it implies restoration.
Yes. You're sweeping the dust off something you already knew but haven't used in a while. You need to brush up on your Spanish before a trip because you learned it 10 years ago and forgot most of it.
So the knowledge is still in there somewhere, just buried.
Correct. It's dormant knowledge that needs refreshing, not brand new material you're learning for the first time.
Okay, number 13, a very direct conflict word, contradict.
To contradict is to say or do the opposite of what someone else said, or importantly, what you yourself said previously. It just means there's an inconsistency.
So if a politician keeps changing their story,
They're contradicting themselves, and that creates confusion and, it erodes trust. It's a very powerful verb for describing a clash of facts or statements.
how about the adjective? Intense. It's so versatile.
Intense means very strong or very serious. And you're right, it's one of the most flexible adjectives because it applies to everything from flavors to emotions to people to experiences.
An intense flavor, an intense film.
Or an intense person, someone who is maybe a bit too focused or serious. But I think we use it most often to describe something that is just captivating or overwhelming.
Right. The source's description of a movie being so intense the viewer couldn't look away, that speaks to that overwhelming power. It's a great high-stakes word.
It is.
Moving on to something a bit more positive, we have praise. And I know the source had some fun with this one.
Praise is simply saying something nice about someone's work, their effort, or their character. It's affirmation. And as the source noted, the word is beautifully flexible.
It works as both a verb and a noun.
It does. As a verb, I will praise you for your diligence. And as a noun, the teacher gave him praise for his excellent work.
And of course, there was the conversational tangent connecting it to the Fatboy Slim song.
Praise you. Yes. I have to praise you like I should. It's great how pop culture can really solidify vocabulary like that. Makes it memorable.
Absolutely. Next, a verb focused on sustained observation. Monitor.
To monitor is to keep a continuous watch over something, usually to make sure things don't change or that they remain safe. It's not direct control, it's vigilant observation.
So parents monitoring their kids' online activities.
Exactly. They're checking to ensure safety. A doctor monitors a patient's vital signs. The focus is on observation over intervention.
Unless the observation shows that you need to intervene.
Correct.
Okay, diplomatic. This is absolutely essential for navigating any kind of social or professional complexity.
Being diplomatic is the art of compromise and resolving conflict. It means trying to settle arguments by listening to both sides and finding a balanced solution, is what a diplomat does.
It's all about preserving the relationship, even when you're solving a conflict.
Exactly. If you have two colleagues who want opposite things, you try to be diplomatic by suggesting a third neutral path, like the sushi example when one wants pizza and the other wants chicken. You prioritize the relationship over either person's individual desire.
From conflict resolution to holding someone's attention. Engaging.
Engaging is such a strong positive word. It means interesting, captivating, holding your attention completely.
It's much stronger than just interesting.
Much stronger. If something is truly engaging, it has your full focus. Finishing a novel in one sitting because it was so engaging, that really speaks to its power.
Now, for a phrasal verb that comes with a big warning label, pipe down.
Yes, this is critical usage advice. Pipe down means be quiet or stop talking. But
It's rude.
it's highly informal, it's a command, and it can be very rude. You have to reserve this for very informal situations with peers or maybe from an adult to a child.
So the source was clear. Never say this to your boss.
Never. Or to anyone you don't know well. It's a clear signal of informality and often impatience. You need to recognize it, but maybe use it very sparingly.
And the final word in this action section, browse.
Browse is essential for anyone who shops. It means looking at things casually without a specific goal or plan to buy right away.
This applies to physical stores and online, right?
Both. Browsing in a bookstore or browsing on a website. And of course, telling a shop assistant, no thanks, just browsing is a universal essential phrase.
Before we move on, we have to revisit that great question from the source material about Hagrid from Harry Potter. The difference between pipe down and dry up.
This is a fantastic teaching moment for phrasal verbs. So we know pipe down is a rude command for silence. Dry up, however, almost never means that.
Okay.
While it can mean to literally dry, like water on your sleeve, idiomatically it means to become less successful, to dwindle, or to stop being productive.
So if a comedian forgets their lines on stage, they might be said to have dried up.
Yes, or more commonly in business you might hear, our sales have dried up this quarter. It refers to a stop in supply or productivity, not a demand for silence. That distinction is so important for context.
All right, now we're moving into the vocabulary of precision, control, and change. Kicking us off at number 21, step aside.
Another phrasal verb with a dual meaning. Literally, step aside just means to move out of the way.
Can you step aside, please?
Exactly. Metaphorically, though, it means to leave a job or a position of power, often because you're forced to. A CEO might be asked to step aside after a scandal.
So it's often a polite corporate way of saying resign or you're fired.
Precisely. The context tells you if it's about physical movement or a career change.
Next, a very powerful and highly critical verb, slate.
To slate something is to strongly criticize or disapprove of it. It's aggressive criticism, and it's usually public. This word is so much more intense than just disliked or criticized.
You hear it a lot in reviews.
Constantly. Critics were slating the movie because it completely failed to meet expectations. It implies intense, widespread disapproval.
Okay, number 23. The source flagged this as a really useful, often overlooked practical action verb, ring out.
This is just pure practical utility. It's the physical action of twisting a wet cloth or your hair to squeeze all the water out.
Right.
Learners often don't have a specific verb for this, so they end up saying something clumsy like squeeze the water from the cloth.
Instead, you can just say, you must wring out the mop before you put it away.
Exactly. That is practical fluency right there.
Moving on to making things smoother and easier. Facilitate.
And a quick pronunciation tip, it's facilitate, with the emphasis on that third syllable. To facilitate something is to make it easier or to help it happen. It's a critical word in business.
So new technology might facilitate communication.
Yes, by making it instant and seamless.
The source also drew a really interesting contrast between a facilitator and a traditional teacher. Can you expand on that?
Yes, a traditional teacher stands at the front and gives you knowledge directly. A facilitator plays a different role. They enable the learner to find the information themselves.
So they provide the tools and the structure?
Exactly. They provide the resources, and then they sort of sit back and help the process happen, rather than controlling it directly. It's about empowering action.
We're back to quality control with this next pair. Inspect and inspection.
To inspect is to look at something very closely and carefully to check its condition or quality. It's a detailed, focused examination.
So before you buy a used car,
You should always inspect it for damage. And the noun, inspection, is just the act itself, that thorough check. The detail is the key. You're looking for specific flaws.
and right next to it, the ultimate word for removing any kind of ambiguity, specify.
To specify is to clearly state or define something, leaving absolutely no room for doubt. It's the verb form of demanding specifics.
So don't just ask for a deadline next month.
You must specify the deadline. June 1st at 10 a.m. It's an instruction for clarity and precision, often used when you're clarifying requirements.
Okay, number 27, another verb with two meanings. Swerve.
Literally, to swerve is a sudden, sharp change in physical direction. It's usually unplanned, like swerving to avoid an animal in the road.
And metaphorically.
Metaphorically, it means a sudden and unexpected change of idea, topic, or opinion. You might be discussing the economy, and then someone suddenly swerves into talking about their holiday plans.
So it's that sudden, sharp change that defines the word, whether it's physical or conversational.
Absolutely. It implies a total lack of a smooth transition.
The next word, cooperate, comes with the pronunciation note that's crucial for sounding fluent.
Yes, the invisible W rule. It's pronounced cooperate, and it just means to work together with others toward a common goal.
And the source highlighted this as an essential skill to mention in job interviews.
Absolutely. You're showing that you're a good team player, that you're capable of collaborative effort.
Number 29, the verb address. And again, we're not talking about a location.
No. The verb address means to deal with, to confront, or to talk about a problem or an issue directly. You address a concern, you address a complaint, you address an audience. It means giving focused attention to that thing.
And the listener's application of addressing the elephant in the room is just a perfect example of its high-level metaphorical use.
It is. The elephant in the room is that huge, obvious problem that everyone knows about, but nobody wants to talk about. To address it is to finally confront that difficult topic directly.
Yeah.
A great piece of advanced usage.
And wrapping up this section, number 30, clarify.
To clarify means to make things clear, to get rid of confusion. Now, it's similar to specify, but clarify is often used when the information is already there, but it wasn't understood properly the first time.
So you ask questions to clarify instructions that were ambiguous.
Exactly. It's the action you take to remove doubt and achieve full comprehension.
All right, section 4. This one contrasts the language of planning with the language of spontaneity, analysis, and feasibility. We'll start with a simple preventative action, double check.
Double check is pretty intuitive. It's just looking at something a second time to be absolutely sure it's correct or that it's been done.
It's about reducing error through redundancy.
That's a great way to put it. You double check your essay for spelling mistakes, or you double check that the front door is locked before you leave for a holiday. It just demonstrates diligence.
Number 32, depict.
To depict something is to show or represent it, either visually in a picture or verbally in a description.
So an artist depicts a peaceful scene.
Exactly. That's a visual example. A historian might depict the economic climate of the 1930s using words. It's a fairly formal verb used for representation.
Next, a great concept, spontaneous. And here, we really need to nail the difference between spontaneous and impromptu.
Yes, this is a crucial nuance for learners. Spontaneous means doing something without planning. It's done naturally or suddenly. The key thing is that spontaneous can describe both an event, like a spontaneous picnic, and a person.
I am a spontaneous person.
Right. You might spontaneously decide to cut all your hair off just because the mood took you.
And impromptu.
Impromptu only applies to events or actions, never to a person's personality. An impromptu meeting is one that was unplanned and hastily arranged. You can't say she is an impromptu person.
That subtle difference is exactly what separates fluency from just intermediate understanding.
It is.
Number 34, disorientated.
This adjective means you feel lost, confused, or you've lost your bearings. The root word is orientation. If you lose your orientation, you are disorientated.
It often follows a shock or a big change in environment.
Exactly. Like feeling disorientated after a long flight or after a roller coaster ride.
Now, let's be very clear and differentiate wipe down from that earlier informal command pipe down.
Absolutely. Wipe down is a physical cleaning action. You're cleaning a surface by rubbing it with a cloth. It's a very high-frequency verb for household chores.
We wipe down the kitchen counters after cooking.
Exactly. The meaning is completely, totally different from demanding silence.
Moving into mental rigor now. Analytical.
Analytical describes a way of thinking, using logic, careful thought, and detailed scrutiny to break down complex information. It's the opposite of superficial thinking.
So a good detective needs to be highly analytical.
Right. Looking past the obvious to find patterns and connections in the evidence, it speaks to a very systematic, logical approach to information.
Okay. Number 37 is flagged as pure conversational gold. Doable.
It's probably the simplest, most useful adjective in this whole section. Doable just means able to be done. Feasible.
We use it constantly instead of saying, is this possible?
Constantly. Asking if painting a kitchen in 2 hours is doable immediately sets a relaxed conversational tone while you're still asking about feasibility. It's a great word.
And in a very meta way for our mission today, we have memorize.
To memorize is to learn information by heart, committing it perfectly to memory. And ironically, as the source host advised, trying to memorize all 100 of these words in one go is probably counterproductive.
Right. Fluency comes from using them, not just from rote learning.
Exactly. The goal should be familiarization and application.
2 more phrasal verbs to finish this section. First, call off.
To call off something is to cancel it, to decide not to do something that was already planned. It implies a final, definitive cancellation.
So you call off an outdoor barbecue because of rain?
Or, more tragically, you might call off a wedding. It's a complete cancellation.
And number 40, essential health vocabulary. Come down with.
This is how we usually describe the beginning of an illness. To come down with something means to get sick or to contract an illness. It's much more common and natural than saying, I am catching a cold.
I really hope I don't come down with the flu before my holiday.
That's a perfect example.
We've reached the halfway point. This section is all about efficiency, accommodation, and negotiation. Starting with a very versatile problem solver. Sort out.
Sort out is tremendously versatile, which is why it's so common. It can mean to organize something, or it can mean to solve a problem.
So if your room is a mess, you need to sort out the mess.
Exactly. And if you have a scheduling conflict with a colleague, you need to sort out the issue. It applies to both physical order and abstract problems.
And the source noted it's particularly common and informal in the UK.
Very much so. It's a casual catch-all phrase for fixing things. You might even hear someone say, I need to sort myself out, which means they need to organize their life or their behavior.
Number 42, evoke.
To evoke is to bring a feeling, a memory, or an image into your mind. It's about emotional or sensory stimulation.
So a certain smell might evoke powerful memories of your childhood.
It could. Or a politician's speech might evoke anger from their opponents. It's a very strong verb for describing a deep internal response.
Next, the dual application of accommodate and accommodation.
Accommodate is the verb, to make room for or provide space for someone or something. And as you said, it applies physically. A hotel room that accommodates 5 people, and it applies functionally.
Like the wedding catering needing to accommodate vegan diets.
Exactly. It means meeting the requirements or needs of others. And the noun accommodation most often refers to housing or lodging, but it can also refer to the provision itself.
So if you ask for a special seat on a plane, that is an accommodation.
Precisely. It's a great example of a word that flexes between the literal and the abstract.
And 44, efficient.
Yeah.
And we have to integrate that great moment of conversational friction the host provided in the source material.
Right. Efficient means doing things quickly and well, maximizing output while minimizing waste. It's about functional excellence. The source used the classic comparison that a dishwasher is more efficient than washing by hand.
It saves time and water.
Yes. But then the host immediately jumped in to say they disliked the smell of dishes from a dishwasher.
Which is a perfect moment of real-world thinking.
It is. It shows that while efficient is defined as fast and good, personal subjective things like a smell or a routine often override pure efficiency in our daily lives. Fluency means understanding both the definition and how we actually apply it.
Number 45, noticeable.
Noticeable means easy to see, easy to recognize, or something that draws attention. It's obvious. If there's a noticeable improvement in your English, people will comment on it.
It implies a change that's big enough for anyone to see.
Yes. It's very common when describing physical changes, like asking if a new haircut is noticeable.
Next, the verbal pause. Hesitate.
To hesitate is to pause or hold back before doing or saying something. It's that internal moment of doubt or reflection that causes a delay.
And we use it a lot in encouragement.
We do. Don't hesitate to ask for help. It's urging direct action over pausing or being indecisive.
Number 47, motivate.
To motivate someone is to encourage them to do something, to provide them with the reason or the desire to act. A good leader or a coach motivates their team through inspiration and support. It's all about creating that internal drive.
Fragrant. A highly descriptive sensory word.
Fragrant describes something that has a pleasant or strong smell, usually a very nice one. The flowers in the garden being fragrant is a classic evocative example. It's a beautiful word, much better than just smells good.
Moving to intuition, number 49, intuitive.
And that pronunciation tip again. Intuitive, with that silent W sound that often trips learners up. If something is intuitive, you understand it without needing instructions or an explanation.
Just feels right.
It just makes sense naturally. And that applies to both people and things. A person can have an intuitive sense of what others are feeling. Or a new app can be described as intuitive because you can use it immediately without reading a manual.
And finishing this section, the critical concept for collaboration and relationships. Compromise.
To compromise is to find a solution where both sides have to give up something. It's crucial for avoiding a stalemate. The key insight is that in a true compromise, nobody really wins 100%.
But the conflict is resolved in a balanced way.
Exactly. If one partner wants the sea and the other wants the city, choosing a beach city location is the compromise. It's mutual concession for mutual gain.
All right, section 6. This is all about finding facts, showing resilience, and putting strategies into action. Starting with number 51, the word for definitive fact-finding, ascertain.
And pronunciation is essential here. It's ascertain, not ascertain. To ascertain is to find out for sure, to make certain of a fact.
It's a formal verb, much more precise than just find out.
Much more. You talk to the teacher to ascertain the exact due date. You are seeking definitive, undeniable confirmation.
It gets rid of all the guesswork. And I love the listener application example from the source. Trying to ascertain if your brother ate the last piece of cake.
It's great. It brings a very formal word into a very relatable domestic scenario. It just signifies that search for the undeniable truth.
Staying strong despite setbacks. Resilient.
Resilient is such a vital adjective. It describes the ability to stay strong, to bounce back quickly, and recover despite negative events or failure. It implies a kind of durability of spirit.
It's the language of persistence and recovery.
Absolutely. We need to be resilient when we're learning a new skill, especially when we face criticism or difficulties. We just keep working towards the goal.
Okay, drop off. A very common phrasal verb for movement.
To drop off is the action of taking someone or something to a place and leaving them there. It's usually short and transactional. You drop the children off at school, or you drop off a parcel at the post office.
And 54, a true conversational shortcut that the source says must be mastered for fluency. Head.
If you are learning how to sound native, this is a huge one. Swap out go for head constantly. To head just means to go in a particular direction.
So let's head to the park instead of let's go to the park.
Yes, it's much faster, snappier, and more common in conversation. It immediately signals a fluent, relaxed style. It's also versatile. You can head out, which means leave, or head back, which means return.
Now, a phrasal verb with two entirely distinct context-dependent meanings. Bring up.
This is a classic source of confusion for learners, meaning one is to raise a child. She was brought up in London. Meaning two is to mention something in conversation. Don't bring up politics at dinner.
So you have to rely completely on the context.
Completely. Are they talking about family history or are they talking about a current topic? Let's focus on the mentioning context for a second. Bring up often implies starting a discussion about a potentially difficult, new, or sensitive topic.
So it carries more weight than just mention.
I think so, yes. If I say, I mentioned the weather, it's casual. If I say, I brought up the problem with his schedule, it implies I initiated a more formal or perhaps challenging discussion about it.
Got it. Number 56, prominent.
Prominent means standing out, easily seen, big, obvious, or important. It can describe a physical landmark, a prominent building, or a person's status, a prominent politician. It implies high visibility and importance.
Now, the difference between just talking about an idea and actually making it happen. Implement.
To implement is to put a plan or an idea into action. This is all about execution.
Yeah.
You simply do something, it might be small scale. If you implement a plan, it suggests a large, structured, deliberate execution of a strategy.
It's the professional's word for do.
Absolutely. The school implemented a new scheme to improve student engagement. It suggests coordination and a lot of effort. It elevates the discussion to a strategic level.
A wonderful descriptive word for emotional fulfillment, heartwarming.
If something is heartwarming, it makes your heart feel warm, happy, or emotionally moved in a positive way. It's often used for movies, stories, or acts of kindness.
The heartwarming movie brought tears to my eyes.
A perfect example. It's a lovely descriptor for positive feelings.
Figure out, a classic problem-solving phrasal verb.
To figure out means to understand or solve a problem, often through mental effort or trial and error. I need time to figure out how to fix this computer. It's very common and highly informal.
Okay, let's contrast that. How does figure out differ from the more formal ascertain we just discussed?
Great question. Ascertain is formal, structured, and it seeks definitive proof. Figure out is casual and often implies deduction, trial and error, or simply coming to an understanding.
So you ascertain the facts of a legal case.
And you figure out how to assemble a piece of IKEA furniture. It's a huge difference in register.
And finally, number 60, eclectic. And we have to address the listener skepticism about how often this word is actually used.
Eclectic means drawing elements from a wide variety of sources, styles, or tastes. It's often mispronounced as electric. It describes diverse collections, an eclectic music taste that covers everything from opera to rap.
So to the skepticism, is it really that common?
Well, you may not use it every single day, but you absolutely need to know it for passive comprehension.
Why is that passive knowledge so important for fluency?
Because advanced communication, whether it's in literature, journalism, or a high-level conversation, relies on precision. If you just skip over a word like eclectic, you miss the specific insight that the style is intentionally diverse, not just mixed or random. Full comprehension means grasping these precise, less common descriptors when they appear.
Right. This next section looks at how our actions impact others, how we can strengthen or undermine, and the quality of our work. Starting with the negative impact. Undermine.
To undermine someone or something is to lessen their effectiveness, power, or confidence, often in a subtle or gradual way. It's an insidious process.
So constant criticism from a manager
Can undermine a person's confidence until they can no longer perform their job effectively. It suggests a slow erosion of their foundation.
And in sharp contrast to that, we have stimulate.
To stimulate is to encourage growth, activity, or interest. We see it used in two main contexts. Physically, like a shampoo that stimulates hair follicles for growth, and mentally, like educational games that stimulate a child's development. It's an active catalyst.
Look into. A key investigative phrasal verb.
To look into something means to investigate or examine it, usually of a problem or an opportunity, to get more information.
So the detective will look into the mysterious disappearance.
Exactly. It implies a formal, focused inquiry. It often replaces the simpler word check.
Number 64 is informal, fun, and very visual. Jazz up.
This is pure informal flair. To jazz up something is to make it more attractive, stylish, or exciting. It implies adding some extra decorative element or a bit of energy.
So you jazz up a living room by adding colorful cushions.
Or you might jazz up a boring presentation with some new graphics. It has a theatrical quality to it that makes it very memorable and very native in its tone.
Back to the realm of uncertainty. Speculate.
To speculate is to form a theory or a guess about something without having firm evidence. You're making educated guesses or predictions.
So newspapers are always speculating.
Constantly speculating about who will win a sports game or what a celebrity will do next. It is informed guessing, but it lacks the certainty of ascertaining a fact.
Next, an absolutely essential distinction in food vocabulary. Savory.
This word is non-negotiable for any food discussion. Savory defines food that is primarily salty, spicy, or just flavorful in a non-sweet way.
So understanding the sweet versus savory distinction
Is fundamental to navigating any menu or any food conversation in English.
And 67, blunt. A word that describes a very direct communication style, one that often risks causing offense.
If you are blunt, you are direct, honest, and you get straight to the point, even if that means your words might be perceived as harsh or impolite.
And the source raised a great point about cultural differences here.
It did. In some cultures, blunt feedback is really appreciated because it's seen as efficient for improvement. In other cultures, it's considered strictly rude. It requires careful cultural assessment before you use it.
Okay, to strengthen something, reinforce.
To reinforce is to strengthen or support something, making it more secure or more robust. You can physically reinforce a crumbling wall with steel.
Or you can metaphorically reinforce good behavior with positive feedback.
Exactly. It's all about adding strength and support.
Number 69, diligent.
Diligent is a high praise adjective. It describes someone who works hard, carefully, and persistently on their tasks. A diligent student always completes assignments on time and makes sure they're high quality. It speaks to both effort and attention to detail.
And rounding out this section, accomplish.
To accomplish is to successfully complete or achieve something, usually something of significance. It's a formal and definitive statement of achievement. The ultimate goal for the listener right now is accomplishing the goal of integrating these 100 new words.
All right, Section 8 is all about adjustment and reversal. It focuses on time, reserving resources, adapting to change, and that one single phrase that is a massive shortcut to fluency, starting with gradual.
Gradual means something happens slowly over time, in small steps, as opposed to a sudden dramatic change.
So we often say that progress is gradual but consistent.
Exactly. Learning a language, especially reaching fluency, is a gradual process that requires a lot of patience.
Indicate.
To indicate is to show or suggest something, often formally or indirectly. A change in the latest statistics might indicate a shift in the market.
Or a simple nod or a smile can indicate agreement.
Yes. It is a signposting verb.
Next, we need to differentiate this from step aside. This is set aside.
To set aside means to reserve or save something for later. It often implies an intentional reservation of resources. You set aside money for an emergency fund, or you set aside time every day for focused study. It's about saving for future use.
Dealing with environmental or cultural change. Acclimatize.
To acclimatize is to become used to new surroundings, new conditions, or a new environment. It often has a physical connection to the root word climate.
So it requires a period of adjustment.
It does. You need time to acclimatize to the altitude when you're hiking in the mountains, or you need time to acclimatize to a new company culture.
Okay, now let's nail the distinction between acclimatize and adapt, which is coming up later as word 79.
Great point. Acclimatize usually implies an involuntary physical or environmental adjustment, getting used to the temperature, the pace, the culture. Adapt is usually more behavioral and conscious.
So you adapt your sales pitch.
Right. You adapt your schedule, you adapt your behavior to suit new technology. Acclimatizing is more passive. Adapting is more active and behavioral.
Okay, number 75, mindless.
This adjective describes acting with no thought, no intelligence, and no concern for the consequences. It suggests a complete lack of deliberation. The phrase mindless violence implies violence without any reason or care.
Number 76, a highly contemporary and informal word. Vibe.
Vibe is short for vibration or atmosphere, and it's used to describe the mood of a place or a person. It is extremely common.
So you might talk about the vibe of a new restaurant.
Or say that someone has good vibes. It's a crucial informal noun to know.
And now, the phrase the source highlighted as the single most useful item on this entire list for conversational efficiency. Number 77, vice versa.
The utility of vice versa cannot be overstated. It means that what you just said is also true in the opposite order. It allows you to immediately eliminate redundant communication.
Give us that classic example again.
I don't like her, and vice versa. By adding just those two words, you are efficiently communicating the entire second sentence. She doesn't like me either.
It saves so much time.
It does. If you are fluent, you use vice versa to avoid unnecessary repetition and keep the conversation moving quickly.
Break even, essential for any financial communication.
To break even means that your profit is exactly equal to your cost. You are neither making nor losing money. It's the point of zero net gain. If a new business manages to break even in its first year, that's often considered a big success.
Now, returning to adapt and contrasting it again with acclimatize.
As we discussed, adapt is that active behavioral change. To adapt is to become adjusted to new conditions by consciously changing your approach. A good salesperson needs to adapt their pitch based on the client they're talking to.
And finally, number 80, skeptical.
To be skeptical is to be doubtful that something is true, effective, or useful. It implies a critical and cautious approach to belief. If you're skeptical about a new health trend, you're questioning its validity and its effectiveness.
We're moving into authority, internal knowledge, and planning for the future now. Kicking off with a word of judicial authority.
Overrule.
To overrule is to decide against a decision that has already been made, typically by using a higher authority. It's most frequently used in a courtroom when a judge overrules an objection from a lawyer.
But it can be used in business, too. Yes. A manager might overrule a subordinate's decision, changing the rule based on their superior position.
Number 82, a really simple conversational replacement that elevates simple liking. A fan.
This is a massive conversational win. A fan simply means a passionate supporter or someone who really likes something. Instead of saying, I really like this book, you say, I'm a huge fan of this author. It just sounds more energetic and natural.
A highly intense adjective. Excruciating.
Excruciating is a high-level replacement for very painful or extremely embarrassing. It denotes absolute, intense pain or discomfort.
So watching someone forget their lines on stage.
Can be excruciatingly embarrassing for everyone in the room. It's a very effective word for describing maximum intensity.
A great visual metaphor for being overwhelmed, swamped.
To be swamped means to be overwhelmed with tasks, work, or problems. And that visual analogy is key. You are metaphorically stuck, like in a swamp, buried under too much to do and you can't get out.
I'm swamped with emails this week.
It's a very common, very relatable expression for being overworked.
Number 85, establish.
To establish can mean two things. To start something that is intended to be permanent, or to cause something to be generally accepted. You establish house rules that everyone has to follow, or you establish a new ethos in a company. It implies setting a solid foundation.
Now, a word the Source host absolutely loved. Sabotage.
Sabotage is a highly dramatic verb. It means to deliberately ruin, destroy, or obstruct something to give yourself or your team a competitive advantage. The intent is always malicious and competitive.
And the example of sabotaging a singing performance by playing the wrong music.
Perfectly illustrates that intentional destruction for personal gain.
Influence. Highly relevant in the age of social media.
To influence is to cause someone to change their opinion, their behavior, or their decisions. The link to modern influencers is direct. They are paid to influence your purchasing choices. It's a core word for discussions of power and persuasion.
Number 88, self-aware.
To be self-aware means having a conscious, accurate knowledge of your own thoughts, your behavior, and your character. It is a critical component of emotional intelligence.
And we contrast that with someone who is not self-aware.
Exactly. Someone who is perhaps rude or dominating without realizing how their actions are impacting other people.
Two complementary phrases that define time horizons: long haul, short haul.
These noun phrases efficiently define periods of time. Short haul refers to the immediate future, or a short trip. Long haul refers to the extended future, or a long journey.
So in the long haul, studying diligently pays off, even if it's exhausting in the short haul.
Exactly. It is very efficient comparative communication.
And finally, for this section, considerate.
Considerate means showing careful thought and sensitivity towards the needs or feelings of others. It speaks to empathy and thoughtfulness. Offering to look after your friend's kids when they're busy is a deeply considerate act.
We've reached the final 10 words. We're focusing on informal communication, clarity, and concluding language. Starting with the high-utility phrasal verb, reach out.
Reach out has a literal physical meaning, of course, but figuratively, it means to try to communicate with someone, usually by calling, texting, or emailing.
And it often implies it's after a period of absence, or you're asking for help.
It does. It's a very polite way to say contact. If you need help with a problem, you might say, feel free to reach out to me.
Number 92, banter. A great example of UK social language.
Banter is a noun that describes playful, light teasing, often in a rapid-fire exchange. It is insulting someone, but strictly in a friendly, non-nasty, competitive way.
Mastering banter is key to understanding informal social dynamics, especially in the UK.
Very much so, especially among male peers or close friends.
Sniff around, using that analogy of an investigative search.
The analogy of a sniffer dog searching for information is perfect. To sniff around means trying to find more information about something, often discreetly. Maybe because you suspect something or you're looking for an opportunity.
So someone might be sniffing around the office asking about potential promotions.
Exactly that.
Number 94, bitty, another UK conversational gem.
Bitty is an adjective that means made up of very small, often unrelated, choppy parts.
Yeah.
It describes poor communication or poor structure. A presentation that is too bitty lacks flow and cohesion.
So it jumps between topics without proper connections.
Exactly. It's the opposite of a smooth, engaging narrative.
A great single-word alternative for understand. Grasp.
To grasp means to understand information completely. It implies seizing or fully taking hold of a concept mentally. She couldn't quite grasp the concept means she couldn't fully comprehend or seize the idea. It's a faster, stronger alternative.
And when that grasp fails, something becomes incoherent.
Incoherent means not clear, confused, or impossible to understand. It is often used to describe disorganized speech.
And the example from the source is memorable.
Describing someone who is drunk as completely incoherent because their speech lacks any logic or clarity.
Shift, a simple verb for change.
To shift just means to move or change position, location, or emphasis. A business might shift its focus to a new product line. It's a quick, high-frequency verb for denoting movement or change.
Number 98, momentum. And we're avoiding the scientific definition as instructed.
Informally, momentum means that something is happening with more speed. and it's not likely to stop.
Yeah.
It is this unstoppable forward movement. Once a business gains momentum, it continues to build speed and progress with very little effort required to keep it moving.
Freak out, a high-intensity phrasal verb.
To freak out means to lose emotional control, to panic, or to become extremely angry or upset all of a sudden. It's highly informal.
Don't freak out, but I lost the keys.
That is the classic usage, a warning against sudden panic.
And finally, number 100, conclude.
To conclude is to come to an end or to finish something formally. We conclude this deep dive, or a speaker concludes their presentation. It signifies a clear, definite ending.
We did it. That was a thorough, expansive run-through of 100 high-utility, native-level words and phrases.
It was.
From the necessity of finding balance through reconcile and diplomatic, to the precision of specify and ascertain, and the conversational efficiency of banter and self-aware, that is a phenomenal body of knowledge for fluency.
The scope is extensive, and what's most valuable to the learner is not just checking off a list. It's about internalizing the nuanced usage that we've highlighted.
Right.
Think about the distinctions we drew using head instead of go, the subtle difference between actively adapting and passively acclimatizing, and the huge jump in register between figuring out a puzzle and ascertaining a fact. Those contextual differentiations are the real shortcuts.
And we have to reiterate the advice from the original source material on how to use this knowledge. It is not about trying to memorize all 100 words in one go.
Correct. The two key learning techniques are all about implementation. First, learn in chunks of 10. Write them down, find examples, and actively try to use them in conversation or writing this week.
And the second method.
Second, watch or listen to this deep dive again. Select your absolute favorite 20 words that feel useful or intriguing to you, maybe sabotage, excruciating, or vice versa, and dedicate your focus to integrating just those specific terms into your conversational flow. It's all about active implementation.
That brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the learner. Something to consider as you build your vocabulary confidence. We talked about the frequency of conversational shortcuts versus highly precise, complex adjectives. The greatest challenge for fluency isn't just knowing the definition of a word like ascertain, it's having the confidence to implement it seamlessly in a high-stakes conversation. So we ask you this. Given the choice between mastering 10 high-value phrasal verbs like run through, brush up on, call off, or mastering 10 complex adjectives like eclectic, excruciating, diligent, which set offers the faster route to sounding truly fluent, and why?
Think about the utility and the context. Which set of words changes the pace, the tone, and the connection with a native speaker most effectively, and how quickly can you start making that change?
We hope this deep dive has given you the vocabulary you need not just to succeed, but to thrive. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission here is, as always, the same. We take your source material, we dive straight to the core, and we pull out those essential nuggets of insight that give you a shortcut to being well-informed.
And today, we're focusing on fluency, specifically the everyday mechanics of rapid English. Our source material isn't some dense academic paper. It's actually a real-life conversation about a very mundane task.
Doing the dishes.
Exactly, doing the dishes. And it's a goldmine.
It really is. The language of the sink, you could call it. What we found in that source material are 11 essential, really high-frequency English phrases and expressions. But we're not just stopping at dictionary definitions today.
No. We're drilling down into the subtle sound shifts, the critical pronunciation hacks, and those, reliable grammatical structures that fluent speakers use automatically, every single day, without even thinking about it.
This deep dive is really for the learner who's tired of the textbook. If you want to go from just, knowing a word to actually speaking it confidently and understanding it instantly in a fast conversation, you have to master these little elements.
The phonetic shortcuts, the structural power tools, they're what bridge that gap between written language and, fluent spoken language. Our mission for you today is to help you gain that comfort and that speed.
Okay, let's unpack this right away, because the first few phrases we're going to look at expose what is, I think, arguably the biggest speed bump for non-native speakers trying to decode a fast conversation.
Oh, absolutely. The vanishing or maybe the morphing of the letter T in American English.
It's everywhere once you start listening for it.
It is. And it's really just a classic case of linguistic efficiency. The mouth is lazy. It wants to articulate a phrase using the absolute least amount of effort possible. And that sharp aspirated to sound, requires a puff of air.
Right. It's a bit of work.
It is. So in rapid speech, the language just finds shortcuts around that.
And the source material gives us the perfect first example. It's what the original context called the triple T challenge, which is our first phrase. Set it to dry.
Set it to dry. The context is simple. You're just placing a wet dish on a rack or a towel to let it air dry.
But when you hear native speakers say it quickly,
It's
it's barely recognizable. It doesn't sound like those 4 words.
not at all. If you approach this phrase just from reading it, you expect to hear set, it, to dry. Nice and clear. But a native speaker, they deliver something much closer to said IT dry.
Said IT dry. Yeah, that's a huge shift. We really need to break down those 3 changes that are all happening at once.
Let's do it. Let's start with that first T, the one at the end of the word set.
Okay, so what's the rule here?
This is a classic flap T, or some people call it the tap. Basically, if a letter T appears between 2 vowel sounds, or sounds that kind of act like vowels, like R or L, it almost always softens. It becomes a quick, light D sound.
So in set it, the E in set and the I in it are trapping that T between them. They create that vowel sandwich you mentioned.
Exactly. And physically, what's happening is your tongue just barely taps the ridge behind your upper teeth. It doesn't build up that strong pressure you need for a hard T. That speed and minimal contact is what turns it into a D.
Okay, that makes sense. Try saying set it slowly, focusing on that T.
Set it.
Speed it up. Set.
Set it.
It just naturally morphs to set it. It's almost impossible to say it fast with a hard T.
And this isn't just an isolated thing, is it? This rule applies all over the place.
Oh, thousands of high-frequency phrases.
Yeah.
Think about put it on. Nobody says that. They say put it on. Or a question like what if? It often sounds like what if.
Recognizing that flap T is a huge first step in decoding fast speech.
It's fundamental.
Okay, so we've already gotten from set it to set it. But now we hit the T at the end of the second word, it. And this is a totally different kind of reduction.
This is the stopped T. And this one can be really hard for speakers of languages where you always release the consonant at the end of a word.
What do you mean by stopped? It means your tongue moves into the T position. It touches that ridge behind your teeth, but the airflow is completely blocked. No puff of air escapes. The sound is just cut off abruptly.
So you feel it in your mouth more than you actually hear it.
Precisely. Try saying the word hot. If you're speaking with a standard American accent, the sound just ends, suddenly. There's usually not a final burst of air like hot, it's just hot.
That's the abrupt stop we're talking about.
And that's what you're hearing, or rather, what you're not hearing at the end of it. You have to listen for a silent cutoff. So our phrase is now said, with that clipped, silent end to the T.
And if you, the listener, are waiting for that final sound hound, you're going to be half a second behind the speaker.
Which is a massive source of confusion. You really have to train your ear to recognize the absence of a sound as its own distinct phonetic event.
Okay. We've handled 2 of the T's. The third challenge is that little word to.
The schwa reduction, yes. The little word to is almost never pronounced to with a full O sound unless you're stressing it for emphasis.
Like, I walked to the store, not from the store.
Exactly. But in normal conversational flow, it gets heavily reduced. The vowel sound, that O, is almost completely eliminated.
The source notes that you often just end up saying taterai. Just becomes a quick little transition sound.
And this applies to so many of these little functional words and becomes N, like in rock and roll, often becomes Farrar, like it's for me.
So it's not laziness. It's actually a requirement for maintaining that rapid conversational rhythm.
It's a system requirement. It's how the language maintains its flow.
Okay, so let's put all 3 pieces together. We have the flap T in set, the stop T in it, and the reduced vowel into.
And set it to dry transforms into the rapid, fluid, set it or dry.
If you can break down those 3 steps, you've basically unlocked a decoder ring for a huge amount of fast English.
And this leads us perfectly into the next 2 phrases, because they are immediate reinforcements of that first rule. The flap T phrase number 2 is let it slide.
Let it slide. The context here is choosing not to worry about something, or deciding a minor issue isn't important enough to deal with. And we see that identical T to D change. Let it sounds exactly like let it slide.
The phonetic environment is exactly the same. You have a T followed by a vowel, which triggers the flap for efficiency. This consistency is the most important lesson. Once you master the rule, you can apply it instantly.
But let's get into the nuance of the phrase itself, because let it slide carries a lot of social and emotional weight. The source actually pulled out two very distinct uses from the dishwashing context.
Right. The first one was the positive, or you could say efficient use. The speaker was saying she doesn't meticulously pre-clean her plates before putting them in the dishwasher.
She sees the grime, but she just decides to let it slide.
Exactly. Because she knows the machine's heavy-duty cleaning cycle will take care of it. It's a trade-off. You save effort now because the system is going to handle the consequences later. It's a choice of leniency.
An efficiency choice.
Yeah.
But then there's the other side of it.
Yes, the negative use. This implies taking a matter seriously when leniency is no longer an option. The source used the great example of a student who keeps missing their homework.
A teacher might let it slide the first time, give them a grace period, maybe even the second time.
But by the third time, the teacher's going to say, I can't let it slide anymore.
And that pivot point completely changes the meaning. It goes from a choice of relaxation to an obligation of accountability.
Yes. When you refuse to let something slide, you are signaling that this issue is now severe enough to have consequences. It moves from informal acceptance to formal enforcement.
So the power of the phrase is entirely in that context. It can be a welcome decision to relax, or it can be a dangerous neglect of duty, all depending on the stakes.
And that brings us directly to our third phrase, which keeps that same phonetic pattern going. Let it soak.
Contextually, this is the pre-cleaning strategy. You fill a dirty dish or a pan with water to soften up, as the source says, grime or crusty old food before you actually start washing.
And of course, the pronunciation is let it soak. So we've now reinforced that flapped T 3 times. We're building that muscle memory for decoding this sound.
The concept of soaking is also really transferable, isn't it? It moves way beyond the kitchen. I immediately thought of the example the source provided about the dried paintbrush.
A classic. If you leave a paintbrush out, the paint hardens. It becomes a solid mass. You can't just wash it.
You have to let it soak in water or maybe some kind of cleaner to dissolve and loosen that dried material. It makes the job manageable.
It's a universal concept, really, applying liquid and time to soften resistance.
And let's connect this back to the specific anecdote from the source material. The speaker mentioned she would fill the pan and let it soak, but it was her husband, Dan, who would actually finish the job later.
That's a great little detail because it shows how tasks get divided up. Letting it soak isn't always the end of the job, it's just the prep phase.
A time-consuming prep phase.
Exactly. She sets the stage, and then later that evening, Dan comes in and gently scrapes off the now softened residue. It just highlights that the phrase describes an intermediate step in a bigger cleaning process.
You know, I wonder if sometimes let it soak can be used a little passively aggressively, like you leave the pot on the counter filled with water and you're really just hoping someone else will deal with the scraping part later.
Oh, absolutely. The choice to let it soak can be a very tactical maneuver in household dynamics. It punts the responsibility forward in time, often to the next person who comes along.
So you can say, I'm letting it soak, and you've technically started the cleaning process.
Even though you've delegated the truly unpleasant part to the future, or to an unsuspecting partner, it's fascinating how much subtle meaning we can pack into these simple, everyday actions.
Okay, so we've mastered the hidden sounds of the American T's. Now let's pivot from phonetics to 3 essential vocabulary items related to chores and food, starting with the phrase wash by hand.
This phrase is foundational because it defines a methodology. It is the direct opposite of machine washing. It always, always implies individual attention and manual care.
And we typically use this for things that are either too fragile or made of special materials, right?
Exactly. Think about delicate wine glasses. The heat and high pressure of a dishwasher would probably ruin them, so you have to wash them by hand.
Or like a nice wool sweater that would be destroyed in a washing machine. You have to wash it by hand.
And the structural point here, which the source emphasized, is really crucial for sounding natural. The phrase is almost always split by the object. You put the object right between the verb wash and the phrase by hand.
So you wouldn't say, I need to wash by hand the cutting board. That sounds a little robotic.
Very unnatural. A native speaker automatically says, I need to wash the cutting board by hand. Mastering that split structure makes your sentences flow so much more smoothly.
And the specific anecdote from the source was about a cutting board. Because of its size and the material wood, which can be damaged by high heat, it needed that individual attention. You can't just throw it in the machine.
It's a great example that even in our mechanized world, manual labor is still necessary when you really care about the object.
Okay, so from the action to the result of a good meal, our next phrase is a word every learner absolutely needs to internalize for daily life. leftovers.
This is such a great, concise word, but we have to stress its specificity. The source was very clear on this. Leftovers always implies food. It has to be food that's remaining after a meal.
Right, so if I leave my wallet on the table, those are items left behind. But if I have half a lasagna I didn't finish, that is leftovers. The word is solely for consumable food.
And culturally, especially in North America, this word is incredibly high frequency. Portion sizes are often large, and meal planning is very common. The whole act of meal prepping is explicitly done to have leftovers.
The anecdote in the source material hit this perfectly. The speaker said when she makes soup, she intentionally cooks a huge pot.
Specifically so they'll have leftovers for lunch the next day, or to freeze for later.
It shows that leftovers isn't just about accidental excess. It's often a planned part of the week's food logistics. If your coworker says, "I brought leftovers for lunch," you instantly know what they mean.
It's efficient communication. You know they're eating last night's dinner, and it's not wasted food.
Exactly. Now, our next word is often confused with leftovers, but it is definitely not something you would eat. It's usually associated with cleaning or evidence.
Yeah.
Residue.
Yes. Residue refers to those small, sticky bits or traces of something that are left behind after the main substance is gone. It's the footprint of a substance.
And we should spend a moment on the pronunciation here because it's not what you'd expect from the spelling. The S in residue is pronounced like a Z, residue.
Hearing that Z sound is key. If you pronounce it with a hard S, it'll sound a bit off. The word comes to us from French and Latin roots, which often explains that softer S sound in English.
The source gave two really good contrasting examples. The first wasn't food-related at all. It was the sticky residue left behind when you peel a price sticker off a new book.
That frustrating, stubborn film, that is the residue.
And the second example from the kitchen was the residue of oatmeal stuck to the bottom of the bowl. It's not a portion you can eat. That would be a leftover.
No, it's those tiny, dried-on, hardened bits that stick to the ceramic and require scrubbing, or perhaps soaking.
Right. And this word is so versatile, it moves beyond the physical into more abstract ideas, which is where its real value for a fluent speaker comes in.
Absolutely. You can have chemical residue after an experiment, or medication residue on a surface. But we also talk about emotional residue. You might say, even after they apologized, there was still this lingering emotional residue from the argument.
That's a great extension. Using residue to describe a feeling that sticks around, like an intangible footprint. It really shows how mastering these high-frequency words lets you communicate in such complex, nuanced ways.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've covered sounds and we've broadened our vocabulary. Now we're moving into grammar, and these next two phrases introduce what I'd call structural power tools. This is where recognizing these predictable patterns can help a learner build dozens of perfect sentences instantly. We start with the possessive structure in My Husband's Job.
The apostrophe S structure is just foundational. For native speakers, it is hands down the most common, the most concise way to show ownership or association. But so many learners default to that much clunkier structure. The job of my husband.
The core rule, grammar rule number 1, is simple. The singular possessive. To show a singular person owns something, you add an apostrophe S. Whose job is it? It's my husband's job. Whose book is it? That's Vanessa's book.
The efficiency you gain is huge. English relies on word order, and this structure puts the owner first, then the possession. It eliminates the need for that extra prepositional phrase, of the.
And the source material used this when talking about the division of labor. The speaker said her husband Dan was happy she was filming because it meant she was doing his job for him. So, husband's job.
Right. Now let's dig into the nuance, because this is where fluency is really tested. What happens when the owner is plural? This is grammar rule number 2, the plural possessive, and it's where a lot of people, even native speakers, can get tripped up.
Okay, so if we're talking about more than one person, say, a group of kids, and they share something, like a bedroom, the rule changes in writing, but crucially, it doesn't really change in speech.
That's the key. When the plural noun already ends in S, like kids, students, bosses, you only add an apostrophe after the existing S in writing. So you write the kid's bedroom.
And when you say it, you just say kid's bedroom. You don't add an extra S sound. The possessive is shown visually by the apostrophe's placement, but phonetically, it's just the plural S you already hear.
Now, here's the exception that really proves the rule. Irregular plurals. Words like children or people. They don't end in S in their plural form.
So in those cases, the rule just goes back to the singular possessive rule.
Exactly. If multiple children share a room, it's written and spoken as the children's bedroom with an apostrophe S. If a belief is held by many people, it's the people's belief with an apostrophe S.
So it's a quick test for the learner. If the plural noun doesn't end in S, use apostrophe S. If it does end in S, just add the apostrophe.
Mastering that lets you handle ownership with complete confidence. It's a clear marker of fluency.
It really is. Now, speaking of structure, our next phrase, get the water hot, introduces a grammatical pattern that is absolutely indispensable for giving commands and organizing tasks.
This is the get plus noun plus adjective structure. It's a predictable, high-utility engine for instruction. Its function is always to communicate a command to change the state of the noun to match the adjective.
Let's look at the source example again.
Yeah.
Get the verb plus the water, the noun, plus hot, the desired adjective or state. The speaker needed the water's temperature to change from cold to hot.
And once you recognize that pattern, you can use it to build dozens of clear, grammatically perfect commands on the fly. The structure always implies a dynamic shift, a transition from state A to state B.
I think the best way to understand this is to contrast it with the verb to be, because that really highlights the dynamic nature of get.
That is a fantastic point. If I say the water is hot, I'm just describing a static existing state. The water is already hot.
But if I say get the water hot, I am commanding a change. I'm starting an action that needs to result in a new state.
Exactly. Get is dynamic. Be is static. That's the core difference.
So let's run through some common applications because this structure is just everywhere once you start listening for it.
In an office setting, get the files organized. You're changing their state from messy to organized. At home, before guests arrive, get the dinner ready.
For commands related to people, get the kids dressed, changing them from undressed to dressed. Or if someone's story is inconsistent, you might say, get your story straight.
It applies to objects and machines, too. Get the engine running, changing its state from off to on. Or get the light turned off.
That flexibility is what makes it so valuable. It can even be used on yourself, like the source implied. I need to get myself ready before I can do anything else.
Precisely. For the learner, recognizing that reliable structure get action plus noun object plus adjective target state is like unlocking the ability to give clear instructions in English. If you try to translate these commands literally from another language, you often get a really awkward phrase. This structure just removes all that ambiguity.
Now that we've talked about it, I'm going to hear it constantly. The efficiency is phenomenal.
Okay. We've done the heavy lifting on sounds and major grammar. Now we can get into the really fun stuff, nuance. We're exploring high-frequency words and phrasal verbs that carry specific conversational tones. We start with the phrasal verb, to throw it in.
This verb is such a prime example of the difference between literal and conversational meaning. When we say to throw it in a conversation, we rarely mean actually launching an object through the air.
No, it's about the manner of the action.
And what is that manner?
It's casual, it's quick, it's done without too much ceremony or carefulness. It suggests minimal effort, minimal planning.
And structurally, it's important to remember that this phrasal verb is almost always split, just like wash by hand. You say throw it in or throw some salt in. You rarely hear throw in it.
Right, so let's look at the examples of casual movement. If I say, hey, can you throw the mail in the basket when you come inside? I'm not telling you to fling it wildly.
You just tell me to put it there quickly without bothering to sort it or place it neatly. Just drop it in.
And this applies directly to the dishwashing context from our source. The speaker described her low-effort routine. She said she hardly ever wipes off the dishes. She just gives them a quick rinse, throw it in the dishwasher.
That phrase, throw it in, perfectly signals that minimal effort is being used before the machine takes over.
The second usage the source noted was for adding ingredients in cooking. If you're making muffins and decide you want to add something, you might say, you know what, I'm going to throw some bananas in.
And here, throw in just means to add the ingredient quickly, probably without precise measuring, just as a fast contribution.
Exactly. It's a linguistic shortcut that communicates speed, efficiency, and a relaxed, informal approach to whatever task you're doing.
Okay, next up is one of the smallest words in English that carries, I think, the greatest psychological weight. Just.
It's a tiny four-letter word, but its primary function is one of diminution. It minimizes. It makes things seem smaller, less important, less formal, and it's often used to soften the tone of a statement.
Socially, this word manages expectations. Let's think about the source context. The speaker said, "We don't use fancy plates, it's just our house." By adding just, she's immediately relaxing any social pressure.
She's signaling, this is not a palace, you don't need to be formal, this is merely our home. If you take just out, the statement, it's our house, is a simple declaration of fact.
But when you add just, it becomes a social cue, a cue to relax.
And that diminishing function is applied so widely. We use it to minimize status or responsibility. The example, he's just a kid, we need to be patient, uses just to reduce the child's accountability. It justifies leniency.
And it's such a powerful tool for emotional support. If someone is panicking over an error, a fluent response is often, it's just a small mistake, we can fix it.
By minimizing the mistake with just, you simultaneously ease their anxiety. It's a really subtle but essential tool for emotional regulation and for navigating social situations. Learning how to use just accurately is a huge step in sounding natural and empathetic.
It is amazing that one small word can do all that. Minimize formality, status, and severity all at once. Okay, finally, for our bonus phrase, we're looking at a word that describes temperament and standards. Picky.
Picky. It describes a preference that is difficult to satisfy. It means having very specific and often numerous requirements for something to be acceptable. But as the source noted, this word is contextually loaded. It can be negative, but it can also be very positive.
The default negative usage is, of course, the picky eater. Everyone knows one.
Right, the person who only eats, pasta and bread, or who needs their sandwich prepared in a very exact way with no crusts. It's usually seen as a minor social burden.
But the source highlighted the positive application so well. The idea of having high standards when it really matters. When is being demanding a good thing, when the outcome is critical.
Exactly. If you're hiring a new marketing manager for a really important role, you must be picky. You're expected to be selective, to reject candidates who are just okay, and to hold out for someone who is truly exceptional.
In that context, picky is a synonym for diligent or thorough or having high standards. It's professional.
It is. If you're quality checking a product or screening investments, you have to be picky. The word choice implies that the criteria for selection are, and should be, necessarily narrow.
And bringing it back to the original source anecdote, the speaker used picky to describe their lack of standards when loading silverware into the dishwasher.
Right, they said, you might be picky and try to put every fork and spoon in its own little slot, but I am not picky, I just throw them in.
That statement really encapsulates the efficiency theme we've been tracking. The speaker decided that the effort required to be picky about silverware provides zero return on investment because the machine cleans them anyway. It's a conscious choice to lower the standard for the sake of efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a really deep dive into the language of the mundane, and we've pulled out 11 essential linguistic nuggets. We've covered everything from phonetic shortcuts like the triple T challenge and set it to dry, to critical vocabulary like leftovers and residue.
And those structural power tools like get the water hot and the possessive in husband's job.
We also explored the nuances of let it slide, let it soak, wash by hand, throw it in, just, and of course being picky.
And I think what this whole exploration confirms is that the real barrier to fluency isn't just vocabulary size. It's mastering these small, subtle linguistic habits, the T to D shifts, the stop T, the reduced vowels, and the predictable nature of structures like get plus noun plus adjective.
These micro changes are the mechanical backbone of rapid, fluid American English. Understanding that set it to dry isn't a phrase you sound out letter by letter, but a block of sound that flows as set it to dry. That's the key. That's what unlocks true comprehension in fast conversations.
It allows you to move from struggling to translate word by word to instantly recognizing the rhythm and the flow of an entire thought.
Internalizing these mechanics gives you speed and accuracy at the same time. It lets you anticipate what a speaker is going to say even before they fully say it.
And that's the moment where listening stops being a chore and starts becoming comfortable.
So we focused on 11 simple, everyday phrases from a conversation about chores. But the underlying rules, like those T reductions and the reliable grammar structures, they apply to literally thousands of sentences you hear every single day. So the final thought for you to consider is this. We've identified some of these invisible rules of rapid speech today, but how often do these subtle, unconscious micro changes affect your ability to understand a fast conversation? And what other systemic, predictable rules are still waiting to be uncovered in the everyday speech you hear all around you? Keep listening, keep analyzing, and you'll keep learning.
Until next time.